Realtors. This is the last episode of our summer session, and today I have both Jim and Sarah with us to discuss your home buying experience to wrap everything up. We have the pleasure of Jim's wife today. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'm going to direct my first question to you.
Great.
How did the home buying process differ from what you thought it would be? What are the big standouts?
How quickly it moved. I think in the market that we were buying in, everything was moving quickly because there wasn't a lot on the market and everyone was making offers. And so you have it in your head that it's a process that's going to take a long time and you're going to look at lots of houses and you're going to go through this whole thing. But for me, it felt like it moved really quickly. And then because we wanted to get an offer in on a house we really liked, we did it over the weekend and we just signed the paperwork really quickly, and I didn't always know exactly what I was signing because I was relying on Jim to tell me. And so if you're someone who doesn't know what's going on but you feel like you have to move quickly to make an offer, I think it can be difficult because you're like, you got to get the offer in by this time on this day, and you're panicked and you're signing all this paperwork and you might not necessarily have the time to think about it. So I think that is what stood out to me, is how quickly it moved. In the market that we were in, that might not always be the case, but that's what it felt like to me.
Perfect. And I know, Jim, you had the honor of interviewing Sarah, actually, for our
very first podcast guest.
Our very first podcast guest.
How do you feel being back?
Just a joy.
Yeah.
It's definitely a little different in person versus virtually.
Yeah. Fucked our production value a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you see? And I'm apparently going to we have a lovely guest here.
Yeah, I don't know
as well.
if she'll be cropped out.
We'll get
The
cropped
baby
out.
in the other room, too.
It's been a day, guys. So how did you kind of feel, with the questions that he asked you the first time around? Are there any you feel better prepared to answer? Like, what is title insurance? And
Or just your overall perception of the home buying process and home ownership.
I mean, I think it feels the same on the other side of it. I still think it's confusing. I still think it moves really quickly. I still think if you aren't somebody who has a support network of people who know the industry or have owned a home before, I think it's really intimidating. It was intimidating to me being married to somebody who knows a lot about the industry and having come from a family where we've had the privilege to own homes. I think it's confusing. I don't think it's an industry that necessarily looks out to their consumer base and says oh my gosh, we're going to educate you so well and we want you to know all of the ins and outs and tricks of the trade. I still don't feel that way about it. And that's no knock on anybody we worked with who worked with awesome, really lovely, friendly people, but also the speed at which the process went. I didn't feel like I had the time to learn a lot because if I had sat down and looked over documents for 3 days and Googled every word I didn't know, we would have lost the opportunity to make the offer. So I still think it's confusing.
If and when we go through the process again, what would you do differently?
I would probably try not to rely so much on you, and I would probably try to force myself to know a little bit more and educate myself a little bit better. And hopefully we would be in a market where we'd have the time to do that and not feel so crunched. But I hear that from a lot of people our age of oh my gosh, there's 6 offers on this house. We need to just do this. And there isn't a lot of time to think. And I feel like that might be where you could get yourself into trouble if you don't know as much as we did.
There were things I was surprised by, I was surprised at how vague it was.
Yeah.
I was telling you the appraisal. We had zero insight. And I thought I was surprised how involved the home inspection was and how much we did for it and then how little we did with the appraisal.
Yeah.
All we heard was from the mortgage broker, hey, your appraisal came in, it was fine. And you were saying too, if our home was 30 grand less, we probably would have had our appraisal come in fine. Right? It just did not feel like there was a lot of insight into that at all.
Yeah, it feels woolly. I will say, I think we took a first-time home buyer course with
Stacy Real.
With Stacy, and that was great.
Friend of the pod,
which was which was great because she did a nice job breaking things down into manageable bites of information. And I think one of the things that she said that we were lucky enough to have in our process was a great realtor. And those, I think, are the folks who need to do the work of educating new home buyers, working with new home buyers, slowing the process down, explaining things. And we were lucky we had amazing realtors, Amanda Benincasa and Jim Benincasa, who did those things for us and would have done more if we had asked. So I think in the first time home buyer course, she emphasized the importance of a good realtor and the many caveats.
We wouldn't have got in the house we did if it wasn't for them.
Yeah, 100%. And there's lots of things that define a good realtor, but I think one of the things, especially for new home buyers, would be somebody who's willing to be patient with you and let you ask questions and let you slow down if you need to in order to feel comfortable with this. You're signing, thousands and thousands of dollars away with the swipe of a pen, and you might not understand what that really means if you end up in a situation that you haven't really thought about.
One question I had too is in the process.
I'm like, what are you going to quiz me on that I don't know the answer to?
Who do you feel were advocates for us? Like, who do you feel like had our best interest?
Our realtors,
Right.
definitely. I think the person who did the inspection, I think he obviously, owns a company or does what he needs to do.
He loves to talk.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great talker, but I feel as though he was pointing things out to us and would have said to us, like, oh gosh, don't buy this house, or whatever.
Right.
I think the person who was at the bank where we got our loan ended up being very nice and knowledgeable.
Yeah.
He was nice and lovely too. Everybody seemed very, very friendly and polite and all of that, but at some point you also do realize, like, you're their customer, so there's a part of it that they kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
But I think there's transactional nature, but I think our realtors and I think the guy who did the inspection, like, I feel like he was definitely, like, looking out for us, so we weren't buying a money
And he
pit.
gave us like a 50-page report. I actually have to go back through that report to figure out what setting to put our dehumidifier.
That's great.
Because I think he
Lots
had it in
of
there.
pictures from his, like, camera. It was like, anyway.
Yeah.
Good.
He was like 6'4", crawling in our attic too.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
it was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So what would you say as your last piece of advice if someone else was going through the process, has a mortgage partner, right? So their partners in the mortgage industry. What would you say specifically to them?
I would say, oh my gosh, I would probably say understand or be open and willing to be working with customers or clients or whatever in any capacity who are new to this process, and understand that, like, the home buying market is diverse and should be diverse and hopefully will be more diverse coming up with new generations, or people who haven't owned homes, or demographics of people who've been treated badly in this industry who are still persisting and then becoming homeowners. Like, we need everybody in business and customer service needs to understand, like, the diversity of your clientele and how that might then force you to do your job differently. And that might not be comfortable or it might be new to you, but that's what you have to do. I still feel really strongly, like, how do you buy a home, especially in an area like ours, when you don't have generational wealth? It is so expensive. It is so much money. You have to put so much down to get a good mortgage. And I just feel like the industry in general, and as a culture, we need to do better serving people who don't have that kind of privilege. So I would say, in any capacity, just be open-minded and understand that we probably need to change.
And just like the
things up a little bit.
generational knowledge that comes with that.
Yeah.
Of
It's
like
so confusing.
understanding some of the issues that came up, like what to do about the sidewalk and the amount you're putting in escrow for the CO, like that type of thing.
Still confusing to me. Still confusing to me. So I think just going into, like, a customer mindset of this industry has served a certain group of people for a long time well, and has not served a certain group of people well for a very long time. And the shifts that everybody needs to do to make those changes and move forward in a positive direction.
I think that was one of the nice things about that home buyer course too, because that way it was like someone who wasn't me explaining it, which was why I wanted to do it.
Yes, that's also helpful.
Like, that was in any marriage.
Yes, separate your personal and business relationships.
Get a third party involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it's exciting, it's fun, now that we're in the house, it's like, oh gosh, we own a home, and what are we going to do now? And we need to figure out how to pay our mortgage. So
I know. I was just emailing the mortgage servicer. I was like, could I please send you a check, sir?
See, we're still learning.
So if Penn Community Bank is listening, give us a call.
Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up for today. We will be checking back in with Jim later in the season. We're going to be doing an industry update segment this year. And we're going to check in with Jim prior to Thanksgiving to see kind of how the new house is going and see if he ever figures out the dehumidifier setting.
I know. I hung up a punching bag today. That was exciting.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see everyone next week for the first episode of season 3, where I'm going to be interviewing Jim and Dave about their biggest mistakes in the history of LodeStar in the past 9 years. So we're really excited about that. And then we have a great season lined up for you. We have a bunch of guests. And then it also we'll be at a few conferences. So if you're planning on going to Digital Mortgage, NAMBA, Housing Wire Annual, or MBA Annual, we'll be there recording live podcasts as well. So give us an email at sales@lssoftwaresolutions, and we'd love to connect with you.
Thank you, Alayna, for all your work on our summer sessions.
Of course.
Too. I'm glad we were able to share this journey.
Yes, and these are the last time you'll see these two palms until next year. So we'll see everyone next week.